Namaskar. Welcome to this session. We are being considering Panchakleshas, Panchaparvakleshas, and today we are commencing Asmita. Asmita is the first phase after Avidya, and therefore it has been considered usually as second klesha. Asmita is something with which we are quite familiar, but not as a klesha. The asmita is something that is one's identity. And many times, one protecting one's identity is considered to be a merit. One's identity as like one's region, one's country, one's nation. So one will be protecting one's identity, and we put up a fight actually in defense of our own identity. And this is hailed in the worldly plane. This is hailed that if you are fighting for your identity, it is hailed. It is praised that somebody is maintaining one's identity as, say, Indian. Like we are used to saying, I'm proud to be an Indian. And then that is something that is hailed if you are trying to protect your identity with respect to regionality, nationality, or even as human being. So there is a very, very sweet nomenclature given to Asmita in the word Swabhimanam. Swabhimanam is praised. If one doesn't have Swabhiman at all, then that is not really praised. It is Swa-abhimanam, self-respect. Now, we know self-respect is something that we protect, and it is hailed if we protect it. If we don't protect it, then we are not at all hailed, and we are looked down upon. So, what is called as Swabhimana is that sweet nomenclature given to Asmita. Then there are so many kinds of this self-respect, you see. Swabhimana can extend to Jatyabhimana, Deshabhimana, Bhashabhimana. So, we try to protect all these things, our own mother tongue, our own region, our own culture, our own being, Swabhimana, and therefore, or our own cult, or our own what is called as Jati. So, Swabhimana, Jatyabhimana, Deshabhimana, Bhashabhimana, Deshabhimana, Swadeshabhimana. So, having pride for one's own country, and to be proud that that is our country. Whichever is our country, we are proud about that. So, usually pride is not appreciated. If somebody is a proud person, we don't applaud that quality of the person if somebody is proud. But somebody is proud of one's own jati, one's own nation, one's own language, what we call as mother tongue, mother nation. So that is hailed and that is praised. And one is advised to maintain such abhimana, such as Jatyabhimana, Deshabhimana, Bhashabhimana, Swabhimana. So the Asmita is something that is praised in the worldly realm. And then we try to nourish it, we try to enrich it, we try to nurture it. And actually, that is Asmita. What is spoken about as klesha here is of all that kinds. Um, it is fortunate that our Swabhimana has only reference to our one birth. Imagine the problem that we would have had. That if we had pride to be what we were in all our previous incarnations, then it would have been a big problem. But just because the Swabhimana is something that Swa in the worldly sense is something which is only limited to one's lifespan from birth to death. So that's actually, we should thank God for that. That it only circumscribes our status as our entity only for one lifetime. And imagine if you had pride for what you were in your last life, and all those previous lives, all your manifestations, it would have been chaotic and quite turbulent condition. Anyway, Asmita is, in simple words, for us to understand, is the Swabhimanam. And protecting one's self-respect, which is called Swabhimana, is, as I said, is a virtue, is a merit, and it's praiseworthy. And those who really do not have this so-called self-respect. Now, this self-respect is strangely something. You understand here as students of yoga, we do not know about who we are ourselves, but yet we have self-respect. If you ask a person who is having enormous self-respect, ask him who is he or who is she, then they fumble. They have no answer. But yet they have respect for that self which is not realized by them. They do not know really, or they have wrongly identified something as self, and with the wrongly identified self, they are also nurturing and nourishing respect. So, the point is, we do not know ourselves actually, essentially, properly, sufficiently, and then we have self-respect. So that's why it creates quite a chaotic condition in the life. Anyway, this Asmita, this self-respect or the Swabhimana will be stuck to what is called as Jat, Pat, Dharma, Pranta, Desha, Bhasha, etc., etc. This our identity, what we call as otherwise identity crisis. What is identity crisis? And then what is identity which has no crisis? No crisis means we are proud of being what we are in the worldly realm and worldly reference. So what is this Asmita that gets afforested within us? It is of the nature of I am of particular caste and class. What is called Jati. Jati means where we have taken birth. So the birth will be taken in various castes and classes. And there are countless classes. Although there are 4 castes, caste in the sense varna. So jati and varna. And this jati and varna has created a chaotic mess in Indian life, particularly. So this asmita is of the nature of I am so and so. Now, what is this so and so? This so and so is that this is my jati, this is my class or caste, or this is my creed, this is my gender, this is my status. So, if you are to describe who are you, how do you describe? What answer do you attach to this question? That this is my jat path, this is my caste and class, creed, this is my race, or I am Indian, I am an Indian, I am American, I am British, I am French, I am Chinese. So our identity has get stuck to the nation, region in which we are born. Then language. I am Englishman. So our language and mother tongue, we also have that in us, attached to us. Then region. I am a Mumbaikar, I am a Punekar, I am a Londoner, I am a New Yorker. So see, our I is also described that way, which actually has no reference to our existence, but yet we have all that kind of identity. Those are all attachments to identity, by which we say I am an Indian, I am an American, I am a Londoner, I am a Mumbaikar, I am a New Yorker, I am a Punekar. Then I am English, I am French. So with reference to language also. Now this is not part of our anatomy and physiology. That you are English and you are British, or you are Hindi and you are Indian. This is no part of our anatomy physiology, but yet we have this edema, the swollen condition of our I, our pronoun I. If it is to be described, we are only going to describe all that which is not really I, which is not really me. India is not really part of my existence. If I am an Indian, it doesn't mean that India is my part of existence. If I am American, America is not part of my existence. But then we have asmita, we have that identity, such as in the case I am American, I am Indian, I am British, I am French, I am Chinese, I am Australian, etc. So see, this is that edema and swelling, swollen condition on the pronoun I entity, because we will be adding all these things to our description of ourselves. Now these are contingent conditions. It is incidental that somebody is born in India and then that is called Indian, or calls himself or herself as Indian. Somebody is born in America, incidentally born in America, starts calling oneself as American or is recognized as American. It has nothing to do with our real existence. But still all these are parasites. So see, when we are trying to demarcate and describe our identity, it has reference to our birth. Our birth. We have taken birth somewhere, in some family, in some nation, in some country, in some ethnicity. All those things get attached to our identity. And then it is all added to pronoun I. So it's an incidental thing that we are born in some family, we are born in some country, we are born in some society, in some social body, and all that gets attached to us. So you can see how there are these parasites. Now, why is it then it is called klesha? For simple reason that the pure, fundamental, basic entity around which we have our existence, that actually doesn't have any nationality, that doesn't have any class, creed, race, gender, ethnicity, family, etc., etc. Because that self, according to metaphysics, is ajanma. It has neither birth nor death. It has no caste, class, creed, nationality, status, stature. Nothing of that kind. Our pure existence doesn't have all these delimitations. These are all parasites. Like when you keep a piece of jaggery open, you will see soon the ants getting onto it. So similarly, all these things are getting stuck to us when essentially we are all not that. The simple way to explain out this is, when you are fast asleep and in a dreamless sleep, are you not existing? You are existing, you are very much existing. And that is why on awakening you say, I was fast asleep. I was sleeping. That means you are existing. Not that you are not existing, you are existing even in dreamless sleep and deep sleep. You existed. Now, that which we say that it was existing even during the sleep doesn't have delimitations or what is called as upadhis, such as jat, path, linga, varna, bhed. So it doesn't have caste, class, creed, age, status, stature, etc. When you are fast asleep, you are no more Indian, you are no more American, you are no more French or British, yet you exist. You are no more man or woman, but still you exist. You are not young or old, but still you exist. Because that centric force, which is really our existence, essential existence, doesn't have all these delimitations. These are all parasites which get stuck to it on our awakening. So all that is not really part of me or me itself get so attached that it all becomes part of our identity. So our quintessential self doesn't have all this, but yet all this appears just because simple reason that we are in awakeful state. And they get so deeply integrated with our existence that we really cannot separate ourselves from all that. Such as I am Indian, I am American, I am French, I am Hindi speaking person, I am English speaking person, I am French speaking person, I am of this jati and that varna. All these things, they get stuck to us on awakening. When you are fast asleep, You are you are just existing. You are no one to anyone, and no one is anyone to you. And you do not have all these parasites on you, such as you are Indian, American, English, French, that you are man or woman or young or old or strong or weak or stupid or intelligent. Nothing of these sorts of things are there. So that is called Nirubadhika Aham. And on awakening, it becomes Sobadhika Aham in philosophical parlance. So, what is essential me and what is considered me? What is essential I and what is the considered I? The considered I means all these delimitations are almost integral part of that self. And all our self respect is to something which are parasites, incidental things. You are born to be Hindi family or Marathi family or Gujarati family or English family or French family. It gets attached to you so much that you start having that aspect in your identity, that I am Marathi, I am Gujarati, I am Hindi, I am English, I am French, etc., etc. So what is non-me becomes me. What is non-me becomes me. And this is what is our idea of me, which is actually full of non-me clamor. It is clamor of non-me. All those things which are non-me becomes me. That is the awakeful state chaos. And that is why it is klesha, it is asmita as a klesha. Because what is not really me is considered as me. Atmanatma avivekam. If you recall that part of avidya, which was Atmanatma avivekam. It's indiscrimination between the self and non-self. The non-self itself becomes the self. And such a clamor of non-self that the self almost gets eclipsed, veiled, covered. And that is why it is klesha. So our pronoun I is just imposition. We are imposing the pronoun I, and that is aropita aham, pratyaropita aham, imposed aham, imposed I or me, and not essential me. We never refer to essential me. Although we know that it exists, like in just now I said, example of tree, less sleep. That's why after sleep you say, I slept well. Now that I means it is bereft of all these vestiges. These are all garments that we are putting on as man, as woman, as young, as old, as Occidental, as Oriental, or of particular ethnicity or particular belief, etc., etc. It all happens on the point of birth. The moment you are born, all these parasites get stuck to you for entire lifetime. So if you are born in a Christian family, you say I am Christian. If you are born in Hindu family, you say I am Hindu. If you are born in Parsi family, you say I am Parsi. If you are born in Muslim family, you say I am Muslim. So it is not essential that we are all that. But the faith that our family follows gets so attached to us that it becomes a part of our existence. So that's why I told you about that concept of edema, the swelling on the pronoun I. These are all swollen conditions of pronoun I. If they are really influencing you, that I am Hindu, I am Muslim, I am Parsi, I am Christian, etc., etc., and then I am Indian, I am American. When you are fast asleep, you are no longer whatever nationality you claim to be having. So you might go to sleep as Indian and as American, but you are fast asleep. You are longer Indian, no longer American, no longer British, no longer French. So these are all incidental factors which are getting onto us so strongly, clinging onto us and we clinging onto them, that we really cannot separate ourselves. So that is why asmita has been considered as klesha. Asmi is not klesha, but the suffix, the form of ta, asmi, ta, asmi-ness, that suffix, that becomes a klesha. The I is not a klesha. I-ness is the klesha. Now, I-ness has all these integral aspects such as I am Indian, I am American, I am British, I am French, I am young, I am old, I am Eastern, I am Western, I am Occidental, I am Oriental, I am Christian, I am Parsi, I am Hindu, I am Muslim. So all these things cling on to us. And they are inseparably clinging on to us. And that is called I-ness. So I is not a klesha, I-ness is klesha. I-ness, try to understand the I-ness in dreamless sleep, which has no caste, class, creed, belief, gender, status, age, etc. And the I-ness of a wakeful state, which has all that. So you will understand that the I of dreamless sleep is more essential I, and the I-ness of a wakeful state is more imposed. All kinds of impositions that you are, whatever you are in your identity. And that's why it is a klesha. That is asmita. Asmi is not a klesha, but asmi means just being. But we are never pure beings. We have a state of being. We never refer to being. We always refer to state of being, and that has such a strong identity with our being that we think we are that. Our state of being, that I am happy, I am delighted, I am sorrowed, I am worried, it becomes so integral part of us, which is a state actually. It is our state of being. In a wakeful state, we have a state of being, while in dreamless state, we are merely beings. There is no state to our being. So that being is surrounded, clamored, and then there is that clinging of all those factors onto us, and we clinging onto those factors. That's why it is asmita. And that we sense that our I-ness. We don't sense our I-ness while we are in a dreamless sleep and fast sleep. We don't have our sense of I, although we exist. Our I exists, but we don't have sense of I. But the moment the sleep wanes out, then we start getting our I-ness. So this I-ness is always pratibhasa. I-ness is always untrue. And we cling on to this untrue I-ness in our business activity of life. So that is why it is a affliction, it is a klesha, because basically there is mal-identification. So when our I-ness appears in our psyche, then it becomes asmita. In our dreamless sleep, it is not appearing in our consciousness. We are not unconscious while we are sleeping, because unconscious state is a different state than sleepy state or dormant state. It is not one and the same. However, in dreamless sleep, I-ness doesn't get mounted on our I. pronoun I, but the moment sleep is over or slightly waned out, then the I-ness gets mounted on our consciousness. And then we become someone. We become someone to someone. Someone becomes someone to us. We become something. So, that the dawn of I-ness on our consciousness is in one sense asmita, and that is invariably an imposition. It is invariably an imposition because essentially we are nobody is nobody and nobody is anybody to us. But the moment our I-ness gets mounted over the consciousness, then we become somebody, and somebody becomes somebody to us. So, this asmita is very intriguing principle, which is really playing mess with our life, dynamics of life. And this asmita has been defined by Patanjali in the terms Drugdarshan Shaktyoho Ekatmata Iva Asmita. So Drugdarshan Shaktyoho Ekatmata Iva Asmita. Ekatmita, oneness. Oneness of what? The two factors, two entities. The two entities seeming one are getting mutually imposed on each other, that is asmita. Druk Shakti and Darshana Shakti. So these are metaphysical concepts. Sooner or later we will have to understand what is Druk Shakti and what is Darshana Shakti. The word Shakti comes from for potentiality. The power to see and power of seer. Druk Shakti and Darshana Shakti means power to see and power of seer. So when they appear one and the same, then that is asmita. Like when you look at your reflection in a mirror, you say, this is me. When somebody shows your own photograph, you say, this is me. Now, the fact is that it is a photograph and therefore not you. Or it's a reflection in the mirror and therefore not you, but we identify ourselves so much that we declare and claim that this is me by looking at our own reflection. And this is me by looking at our own photograph. That's not part of you integrally. A photograph is photograph. It is a piece of paper on which there is depiction of your image or your face. And it's a piece of glass behind which there is mercury stuck to it, and therefore the glass is now no more transparent, but the glass is now reflecting. When the glass reflects as a mirror, then you are looking at the reflection and you are claiming that this is me. No way it is you, but it is only your reflection. But we have this oneness between the reflected entity and reflection. Bimba pratibimba, reflected and reflecting. So therefore that is ekatmata, that is oneness. So your existence as a man, woman, young, old, Occidental, Oriental, Indian, Westerner, Easterner, Indian, American, Japanese, Chinese, all these things, they are impositions. And those impositions itself are regarded as if it is oneself. Therefore we say, I am American, I am Indian. I am man, I am woman, I am young, I am old, etc., etc. So, that is the two things, entities, on account of imposition, seem to be one. So that is Drukdarshan Ekatmata. That imposition is of the nature of oneness. So Druk Shakti in the sutra is actually Purusha, the Atma, the metaphysical self. That is Druk Shakti. And Darshana Shakti is actually Buddhi. It is Buddhi which gives you the feeling that you are Indian, American, Eastern, Western, Oriental, Occidental, or Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Parsi, etc., etc. It is the intelligence which has all that, or our consciousness of a wakeful state. And then the oneness in the two, that means we think we by ourselves are whatever we are, Indian, American, etc., English, French, etc., man, woman, etc., young, old, etc., strong, weak, etc., handsome, unsightly, beautiful, unsightly, etc. That is not all that we are. We are referring to something which is not me. It is our body, it is our face, it is our vestige that we are referring to. The sheath that we are putting on. They are all actually our clothes. They are all our garments. Humanness is a garment that we are putting on. The essential self doesn't have anything of that kind. The same self is found in ant and elephant and bacteria and dinosaurs. The self doesn't change there. But then these are different bodies. Human being, animal, elephant, cat, dog, mosquito, eagle, crow, sparrow. These are all bodies. But their centric entity, the self in them, in that self, there is no sparrowness, crowness, elephantness, humanness, etc. It is the body that we are putting on. It is all body over the clothing over the self, whereby something is called as elephant, something is called as buffalo, something is called as dog, something is called as human being, something is called as peacock or eagle, etc., etc. Actually, they are clothings over the self. They are clothes over the self. So, that self is called Druk Shakti. It is because of that self that we are able to hear and see and feel, etc., etc. All sensations come because of that animate entity within us. If that animate sentient entity is withdrawn from the embodiment, all that is gone. So, Druk Shakti, the power of seeing, power of seeing. Seeing comes for everything, hearing, seeing. If you are hearing, seeing, smelling, touching, feeling, sensing, it is all because of that entity within you which is giving you, according you, sentiency. And because of that sentiency, you are sensing. If the sentiency is withdrawn from the embodiment, despite having all senses, you don't see, you don't hear, you don't see, sense, you don't feel, you don't taste, you don't smell. So, see, that is the centric entity. That is called Druk Shakti, which is referring to the Atma Tattvam, Purusha Tattvam. And the other one is Darshana Shakti, which is Buddhi, our consciousness, our psychic matter. Because of our psychic matter, we have this awareness that I am Indian, American, British, French, I am Occidental, Oriental, I am young, I am old, I am man, I am woman. It is all body. The Atma doesn't have linga. Atma doesn't have gender. Atma doesn't have jat, pat, linga, varna, bhed, etc. So that is Purusha Tattva. And that is same in you and me, in bacteria, in ant, in insect, in worm, in elephant, in dog, in lion, in serpent, in eagle, in crow, in sparrow, in blue whale, name any animate body. That Atma Tattvam is one and the same. There is no distinction between Atma Tattvam in human being and the same centric principle in aquatic or herbivorous or carnivorous animals and animate creation. But there is imposition of all this. This imposition is all Maya of Buddhi, consciousness. And that's called Darshana Shakti, power of seeing. Power of seeing and power of seen are the technical terms used in the philosophy here. So their oneness is Asmita. This is how it is defined in the sutra. In simpler words, it is Buddhi Purusha Ekatmata. The principle of consciousness and consciousness, their oneness. When you can't have the division in two, that this is principle of consciousness, it is the consciousness. As long as there is that indistinction, that is Asmita. So there is that binary between Buddhi and Purusha. Purusha is Atma. Atma is the self, the sentient principle, and the consciousness. So this is actually a binary, principle of consciousness and very consciousness. We cannot really have any distinction between the two. And that oneness is Asmita. Now, the sutra, as aphorist has chosen the words, is Druk Darshan Shaktyoho Ekatmataiva Asmita. Now, usually a naive person has this question, why my I-ness is being described, why in such intriguing words that I cannot understand what I am. So these are quite intriguing expressions. So why the definition is not simplified and simple and simpler? Why Druk Shakti and Darshana Shakti mentioned here? So there is possibly a simpler answer to this question, which is regards to difficulty in definition. Basically, Asmita is a klesha. Klesha is perverse science. Klesha is a vasana. Klesha is a vasana, and Asmita is a klesha, Asmita is a vasana. And this vasana, as a tendency, this has been there from before our birth. It is not with the onset of our birth. As tendency, it is coming from deep-rootedness. As a matter of fact, it is timeless, beginningless. And that this tendency of I-ness is beginningless. Today, being human beings, we have this identity with being human beings. But suppose in our last incarnation we are dogs or cats or bird or whatever the life class, we had our I-ness then also. So, say for hypothesis, in a previous life we were dogs. Then we had Asmita, our I-ness as a dog. So the I-ness is eternal. It is going through various forms such as dogness and catness, elephantness and buffaloness and cowness, eagleness, serpentness. So we could have been anything of that kind in our previous life. And all those lives also had their identities. So identity is eternal. It is only that this phase where we are human beings, in the form of human beings, we have human identity. Prior to our birth, we were in some other form, and therefore we had some other kind of identity. Identity is eternal. So it is there before birth. It is from time without beginning. And it is going to stay even after the death. Because after death, we are going to become something. The Karma Siddhanta tells us that we are going to become something after this death. As human being, maybe next life you could be a crow or sparrow or elephant or cat or buffalo or cow or mouse or bacteria or ant, whatever. So it's going to continue. This vasana, which is the form of asmita, I-ness, is going to continue. It is not going to start with birth and end with death. This is going to remain until we are liberated. It won't be revoked until we are liberated. Moksham. So, ekatmata, this imposition is not for one lifetime. It is one kind of imposition in one lifetime, another kind of imposition, another lifetime. And that is why he has used darshana shakti. Not just buddhi, but buddhi shakti, potentiality. Our potentiality is not going to die with our death. Because we are eternal beings. We are going to flow from one incarnation to another incarnation. It could be any form of incarnation. And that is why the word Shakti, that is potentiality, has been used. Power of seeing and power of seeing. So power of seeing is Drik Shakti, the Purusha, Atma Tattva. That is eternal. That is deathless, endless. So the potentiality to be becoming something is not ruled out until we are liberated, until moksha is attained. And therefore the word Shakti has been used. And the buddhi is also going to be changing. Today we have human consciousness. In another form, we have another form of consciousness, such as elephant consciousness, cow consciousness, buffalo consciousness, snake consciousness, mosquito consciousness, cockroach consciousness. So that is also eternal, but it will have different phases coming up. And therefore the word Shakti, potentiality, has been used. Power of seeing and power of seeing. And therefore this very, very, very apt wording that you find in definition of given by Patanjali. Anyway, that is how the Asmita has been defined and described. So here Druk Shakti is referred to Purusha, or has a reference to Purusha, and Darshana Shakti has reference to Buddhi. Or Druk Shakti has reference to our self as a principle of sentiency, and Darshana Shakti has reference to our consciousness matter. Because all living creations has consciousness matter. It could be tiniest of worm or insect to human being to a large life such as blue whale and elephant. The Asmita is there. This glacier doesn't leave any kind of manifestation in life form. So, rather than saying Buddhi Purusha Ekatmata, he says, he refers to Shakti. He uses alternative expression. Although the reference is to Buddhi and Purusha, he doesn't use Buddhi Purusha for it to be a precise definition, faultless definition. So reference is to Purusha and Buddhi. But then it cannot be expected that Purusha Buddhi Ekatmata Iva Asmita as proper definition, because it will have faults. Therefore, he is not mentioning, although he is referring to Buddhi Purusha respectively, he is not mentioning Buddhi Purusha for simple reason that it is definition and it should be faultless, precise. Therefore, Dhruk Shakti Darshana Shakti Ekatmata is his expression, and not Buddhi Purusha Buddhi Ekatmata. For convenience sake, we can try to understand the meaning of it as Purusha Buddhi Ekatmata. Now, what is the defect in putting it in simple words, such as Purusha Buddhi Ekatmata, when the reference is to Purusha Buddhi Ekatmata? Why not be express about it? What is the defect? We will be considering this defect in our next session. Enough for the time being. Namaskar, all of you.